guys, I am finally back to share some videos with you of my December daily pages. I have most of my embellishments finished and now I'm going to start working on the pages. I got some time this weekend to work on them, so I thought I would share what I have done so far. And what I'm doing right now is just working on the front inside cover of the journal. I wanted to add kind of a little overall kind of wish or what I'm hoping for this season into this pocket here, or the envelope. Both the envelope and the card came from the flea market or an antique mall that I went to. I think I went to this maybe a little bit before Black Friday, and I got some of these things, and it was a whole sack of these vintage Christmas cards. So I was super excited to get those. So I want to definitely make sure I use them in my December daily. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just punching out these little tabs, and I'm going to add that to the journaling card so that when you're pulling it in and out of the envelope, it kind of has, a little bitty spot to grab onto. And then I'm also going to use that vintage photo distress ink to ink around the edges of the tab as well. And then I'm going to tuck that into the envelope. Next, I'm going to glue the card down, and this time I'm just going to put glue around the three sides because I want to make sure that the tip of that envelope kind of tucks into that card so that the flap stays closed and it's not just flapping around since it's on the inside cover. And then I wanted to make sure that this card was kind of a little bit more of a solid piece, so I'm just gluing the layers together here. Now I'm going to take some of little scraps and stuff to decorate this envelope, and I'm using this little bit of wrapping paper. I got this wrapping paper at Tuesday Morning. It's some really thin kind of brownish color music print, and I think that looks really good on this particular album. So I'm going to be gluing that down there. This little tab or tag I got from the antique mall as well, and it does say right now greetings from mom or greetings mom, and I wanted to cover up mom, and I'm just going to use some little itty bitty bits of dictionary paper that I had sitting in my desk or on my desk, and I'm going to layer that little piece there, glue it down, and then put that little shiny gold word strip. And I thought that worked really well on this tag, and I am going to ink around the tag as well. I thought it looked like it needed a little bit of edging, so you'll see me inking that with that same vintage photo here in a second. So now it says greetings of the Christmas story, and I thought that was a kind of a nice kind of little introduction phrase for the album. So I'm going to audition in a couple of different places here, but I'm not going to like it here on this, kind of sticking out. So I'm going to end up tucking that inside the actual envelope here in a little bit. But first I'm going to add a little bit of this kind of Rick-Racky looking trim. I'm just going to glue that down with my 3-in-1 glue, and that works perfectly, and it holds really nice and holds pretty quick too. It doesn't absorb into the fabric like some of the other like white glues do. So I do recommend that glue very much for fabric. These are some printables that I got, and I just printed them on regular copy paper, and so they are pretty thin because I really wasn't sure what I was going to be using them for. So I ended up putting the printable on top of some very thin kind of chipboard. I would say it's probably the thickness of maybe like a cereal box, and I'm just going to punch that out with my 2-inch punch there. I'm going to ink around the edges, and now it's got a little bit more stability. The copy paper is obviously pretty thin, so I wanted something just a little more stiff without putting too much bulk to it. So because that trim has a little bit of dimension, I'm just going to take some of these Stampin' Dimensional dots and use that to kind of balance out the two sides. So I'm going to glue this kind of overlapping that trim piece there. So that is pretty much this front cover here. I'm going to open up the envelope, or not envelope, I'm sorry, the card, and I'm going to add this little tag there, and then I'm going to take this Violet's ABC's Lawn Fawn stamp set and stamp the year 2019, and I'm going to use that same vintage photo, and I thought that looked really nice with the card. The card already has kind of a brownish tone, and I thought that went well and kind of went kind of with the color of the card because it kind of has that antique look. So I'm just going to stamp 2019, and then this entire front cover is complete, and I will start working on my first page in the album. The first page is going to be a picture of our Christmas tree, and I'm going to put it on the back of that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer book page there that you see on the right. And you can see how that tab just kind of tucks in there, and then you can get the little journaling card out. So I thought that worked perfectly. So now I have this picture of our Christmas tree. This is a brand new Christmas tree this year. I had an issue where the cats chewed up the wires on my other Christmas tree, and we always had the Christmas tree up in our living room, but we have moved. Last year was our first Christmas in this house, so this is our second Christmas, and now our tree is in the basement where the cats don't go. So I thought, well, now that we have the tree someplace where the cats can't eat it, I'm going to get a tree that I really, really like and isn't broken and is pre-lit and actually works and all that. So we went out to Lowe's, I think on, was it? It was before, I think it was the weekend before Black Friday, or maybe it was the weekend of Black Friday. And we got this tree. I thought it was super cute. It has some really nice leaves on it, so it's got different kinds of leaves on it. It's not all the same, and it has a few little pine cones and stuff, and it's much more full than the tree that we had before. So I thought that was going to work really well. And I definitely always want to get a picture of our tree when we first put it up. And that little tag that I just punched out is on acetate, and I just used one of my Stampin' Up! Whale punches that I got forever ago, and I punched out that piece. That acetate punched out really well. It actually is from an old hip kit that I got last year, and I just punched it out because I wanted it to be circle. I didn't really like the square, and I got that punched out super easy. And then I am going to take some of this fabric that I got from Etsy, and I'm just ripping at the edges because I like that kind of frayed look. And I'm going to use that there kind of as a tab, and then I'm also going to be adding a little, what are they called? Like bulb pin with some decorations on it. And you'll see that here in a second. So I'm just kind of getting this situated, figure out how I like it. I am going to staple the number 1 to the fabric so it stays. I didn't want any glue showing, so I thought this was the best way to do that. And then I will take some of that 3-in-1 glue and actually glue this down to the photo so it stays in place. So there's that bulb pin that I was talking about. I just got these on Amazon. They were a black color and they're relatively cheap. I don't remember exactly how much I paid for them, but they're pretty easy to find. They're just called bulb pins. And I added some sequins and a little bell to add a little charm to that tab. And you're going to see a little bit later that I'm going to add another little small mini tag. I thought it needed just something else, so I'm going to grab out one of my old Stampin' Up! Punches and then punch out some of this music paper. And first I'm just going to back it on some of this cream colored cardstock. The music paper, like I said earlier, is pretty thin and flimsy, so I needed a little bit more body. So you can see there I just added that to the pin, and I thought it just gave a little bit more, I don't know, kind of texture to the pin, and I added that on. And I'm just making sure that everything is situated the way I want it to so that it fits nicely and shows the right way. And I'll just clip that on there, and that works perfect. You can also put these bulb pins through paper, but the fabric works really well this way because it's easy. So now I am just gluing this down. I am going to glue just on 3 sides because I am going to make a tag that goes behind the photo, and that will have my journaling on it. That's what I'm going to make next. I'm just going to take some coffee paper, or actually this is tea paper. I dyed this with some tea, and this is a cardstock. And I'm just going to make a tag shape out of it. I'll punch a hole in the top, and then I did also color these reinforcers with some of that vintage photo, and I thought that works perfectly. And then I just use a regular size hole punch and then put those reinforcers over it. I just like the difference in color that it gives. And then I'm going to take my ink and just ink around the edges. So now that I got that and it fits nice and perfect, I am going to do some collaging on the front of this. And then once I get done collaging, I will do some stitching around this entire tag as well with some black thread. So I'm using this dictionary paper that I coffee dyed, and then I'm also going to be pulling coffee filter and using that as well. I really wanted to use this cheesecloth, but then I thought about the fact that I'm going to be slipping it in and out of the photo there or behind the photo, and I didn't think that was going to be a good idea. I needed something much more flat. So I'm just going to take this coffee filter that I coffee stained and trim out so it fits, and then I'm just going to glue all this down. And then I wanted to add another little embellishment, and so I'm looking through some of these little journaling cards, but I end up going with a sticker from one of the sticker sheets, and I pull out this wreath that is on the sheet there, and I'm going to do some distressing around it as well. I thought it was a little bit too white, and I'll show you how it looks different or compared to the sticker sheet. I'm going to hold them up together there so you can kind of see how it's a little bit different, a little bit less white. And I didn't like how the text of the dictionary paper was showing through, so I'm just taking a little snippet of vellum putting that in the middle and then gluing that all down. So you can't really see the text, or at least it's not as distracting. Just glue in down with my 3-in-1 glue, and then the front of the tag is done. I'm going to stitch around next, and then I'm going to measure for my journaling. Now the journaling is just going to go on some vellum that I ran through my printer. I wanted to use my typewriter, but I couldn't get the font on the typewriter was a little too big, and I couldn't get all of my journaling on here. So I did end up using a typewriter font on my computer and then just printing it out that way. Now I did find that 3-in-1 glue works really well with vellum. I was a little worried about it showing through, you know, with the vellum being translucent. Sometimes these glues really show through pretty badly, but this 3-in-1 glue actually worked really well. I did only put a little bit in each of the corners, but I was pretty impressed with the fact that you really couldn't see the glue through the vellum, or it wasn't as noticeable as if I was using maybe my Scotch Quick Dry. I'm just taking some vintage lace, or vintage looking lace, it's not actually vintage, and some of this twine and just tying it together. And I really like the combination of the two together. This is just like a brown and white twine with the kind of vintagey looking lace. And I'm going to add a little bit of glue there on the knot just to make sure everything kind of stays still and doesn't come undone, since that tag can come in and out of the pocket. So now I'm going to be working on the right hand side of the page. This is a picture of me and my daughter, and I'm just going to mount this on some of that same cardstock that I used, or that same pattern paper I used behind the tree. And then I want to do some layering on the right hand side. So that thing that I have right now on the right hand side is an tea filter. When I did my tea dyeing earlier this fall, I ended up keeping the tea bags because I thought they would be some fun kind of layering pieces, and I thought that worked really well over here. I just kind of folded it up kind of long ways, and then I put some of that same wrapping paper there and just tore the edges, and I really like how that looks. But I wanted to get something else right there on the right corner, so I'm pulling this very, very cute little deer, and I am inking her all up, or at least I guess she's not a her, she's got antlers. So this little boy deer, I'm inking it all up just to kind of make it work with the page like I did with some of the stickers. And then I'm going to glue all of this down. But I thought I needed just a little bit more there by the deer, so I'm going to take one of the little embellishments that I made earlier and just add that, kind of tucking it up in there behind the sticker. And I thought that worked well. That's just a little red button with some black thread. I think that has some of the muslin that's coffee dyed, and then some cheesecloth. And I thought that gave some really nice texture to that without being too bulky. This is going to be the last page for this video. This is a picture of my daughter adding some of the ornaments to the Christmas tree. I thought it'd be fun to do this one in black and white. I'm just going to mount it on some of this green cardstock. This green cardstock actually is some cardstock that I used, or that Izzy, our elf, used for a little decoration she made for my daughter. And I thought instead of wasting it, I would use that cardstock to back the photo. So that's where I got that piece actually. It's an old Stampin' Up! Paper. And I'm just going to ink around this little printable. This is a printable from KB and Friends. This is a little snippet of coffee dyed doily that I got from Etsy that was left over from some of the embellishments I made earlier. And I'm just layering those pieces together. And I thought it looked a little plain, so I'm going to add two things of washi. This one that's the red with the stars, and I'm going to add this gold and white stripe. I'm going to put that on the left hand side, but I'm going to move it to the right. It just pushed the photo over a little bit too much to the left, and I wanted the photo slightly more in the center of the page, so you'll see me move that here in a second. Once I move that, I'm going to take that little cluster that I made using the doily, and I felt it looked a little plain, and I go ahead and take some of that same colored cardstock, or that pattern paper that I used on the previous page, and just make a little border, and I thought that stood out a bit more than leaving it just the red printable. So I'm going to ink that all up like I've done most of the rest of the items on these pages. And that is pretty much going to be it for this page. I'm just going to do a couple little pieces here and there to finish this one up. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me. Hopefully you're enjoying this so far. I'm hoping to have day 2 up soon. If you liked the video, make sure you guys give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. And if you want to know when I'm posting in the next video, just hit that bell down below. Have a great day and Merry Christmas. Bye guys.